Hey guys, email here, welcome. Okay, so I need to finish Rosemary Floriograph today because apparently I only have about 5 hours, I think, until this event is over. So we need to finish everything today. There, see, I didn't even notice that the time was supposed to be here. I kept on looking at this one, which says it's still about uh yeah. Anyways, before we go to the final case records, I would just like to I did some detective thingy. I tried to figure out who the culprit is with all the clues that we have. I did have a final suspect. Should I explain it or should I just play it? Anyways, let me show you something. I wish this would be quick though. Did I no, I don't think I transferred it. Um just a minute. Okay. I got it. Let me see. There we go. This is my this is my deduction. I I racked my brains over this, okay, for what the clues that have been given on me that I have gathered on this event. Bear with me. I know this is going to sound so Lulu. Anyways, let me just make it very quick, and I'll tell you who my prime suspect is. Okay, first off, who we got are the murdered victims, which is Joyce, Jackal, Raven, and Grey Serpent. And their connection to each other is that they experimented on children, aka call them material. So that's their connection. Okay. The children are from the orphanage, which is also handled by the church, which is Joachim is I don't know, he's like the caretaker, I think. Anyway, he's connected to the church and takes care of the orphan children there. In any cases, the experiment victims, the so-called material on the whatever experiment they were doing, are silly. Even though she just only makes about cameo appearances, there have been records that she did exist in the event, even though it's just cameo appearances. Then we have Bronya. Joel. The only reason why Joel is a part of this. Uh, you see that? The only reason why I put Joel a part of this is simply because it's possible, from uh well, if we compare it to Otto, I think it's very much possible that Joel is also an experiment victim. Then we have the last one, who is Sora. this might be better if I put this on paint. Just a minute. Okay, here we go. Paint. Okay, so where was I again? Let me at least get a highlighter. No, no, right. Just a pencil, but it cannot be seen. All right, all right. Much better. Where were we? All right, the experiment victims. So I put in Silly, Bronya, Joel, although I just put him there for the sake of it because I think it's very much possible that he was part of it. And then we also have Sora. The reason for that is I do believe that she is one of the orphan children because otherwise Raven wouldn't feel guilty about anything if she wasn't part of it. So my basis that she was an experiment victim is because of Raven, of how Raven treats her preciously. Okay, so the clues that we have is simply the word Rache. Am I pronouncing it right? Rache, which is German for revenge. So, so that usually doesn't here. This one, Rache means German is German for revenge. That is, I think it was Raven who told us that. Okay, it's one of the clues. So the wounds of the murdered victims. Anyways, I'll get onto the wounds later. So my possible suspects that I have included as per the event, the info that I got from the event. One is Joachim, simply because of the beginning, the beginning CG. You know, it's wait a minute. Oh no, not that. Where was that? I'm taking so long now. Oh yeah, here it is, the album. So it's actually here. It's simply because of this one, this site of sin. So that is one of the reasons why I think why I thought to include Joachim onto the list of possible suspects. Because even though Dr. Einstein said that Joachim had no idea, it seemed to me that he would help whoever that girl was, which could possibly be Silly or Bronya. My hunch. Take revenge. Okay, so that's the reason why I put it him there. Okay, so next one is Silly, which is a very weak my one of my weak prime suspects, I simply included her there uh because well, I silly when we met her in the dream, when Conan Doyle met him in the dream, Silly mentioned that poem, the roses are red, violets are blue. It's simply because of that. And that's the reason why I said that this is the weakest one there is. Okay, I also included Bronya because it's very much possible. It's very possible that, I mean, she seems to have the motive too, because she and Sally found out about the experiments. There was a login that they both found out about that. Okay. Sora, simply because, oh, that's also one more point. The reason why I put Silly, Bronya, Sora, and Joel is simply because I put them in the experiment victims. Because who would want to take revenge on this for? Wouldn't it be the very victims themselves? The victims of the experiments themselves? They have a, they have the motive for revenge. Um for right, for Joel's sake, it's simply because, well, I did uh made the guess of putting him in the experiment victims. So it's possible, but him being a prime suspect is also very weak. And I know. I also put it Rita in here simply because she's very sus to me, you know. Her actions, her very easygoing nature is kind of very sus, but she is also a very weak prime suspect because, well, she has a very solid alibi, which is she is always with us. She's always with Conan Doyle. So, yeah, it's a very weak one. I just put her there for the sake of putting there because I find her sus. Okay, on to the next topic. Narrowing the suspects down. Since Rache is German language, I tried looking for their nationality. If you guys must know that some of the nationalities of our characters are actually based in real life. Like, for example, I put them in parentheses. So Joachim, according to his profile, is actually from Finland. Then we have Silly, who is from the Republic of Estonia, which is a country in Northern Europe. Then we have Bronya, who is Russia. Sora is, well, there wasn't any much profile on her. But the first time that we met her was that she was from Nagazora, which I think is only a game only location. Joel is also the same. Joel's origin is actually uh is actually well Joyce clone from Apost, the open world Apost. That was his first appearance actually. Actually, I haven't done Apost. I should probably do that sometime. And then we have Rita, who is from Manchester, England. Um, well, I did try to look for someone who is of German origin, but unfortunately, none of our characters in this event are from German. So yeah, that has been scratched off. And besides, it's very much possible that they could actually just learn the German language. I mean, Raven, well, I'm not sure about her nationality origin, but she was the one who told us that Rache means revenge. In any cases, the last one that I went looking into are the wounds. So, aside from Raven, all three of them actually got stab wounds. Well, Joyce and Jackal died from a stab from the back. Grey Serpent, on the other hand, got two kind of wounds. He got stabbed on the back, and then his throat was his throat was slit. Okay, and Raven got her throat slit. So this is the conflicting about this too. And if you would, and according to Conan Doyle's, uh, what you call this? Conan Doyle's autopsy, it would appear that Grey Serpent had actually been dead since 10 days ago. Yeah. So, apparently, the one who's been running around couldn't have been Grey Serpent. It means that Grey Serpent had also probably died from the stab at his back. And the slit of the throat is just recent one to make it look like that he and Raven had clash. Okay, so if we look into the wound in the wounds and the alibis of our possible suspects, I crossed out Silly because, she has only but cameo appearances. Joel, I crossed out Joel as well because during the blackout, it is quite impossible for Joel to be the one to have stabbed Jackal because during that time, Raven had been uh Raven had been grabbing him, grabbing him, assaulting him, or something like that. In any cases, there's no way that Joel would be able to walk around the dark. Rita, as I said, has been with us the entire time. Branya and Joachim, I also had to cross them out because although it's possible that they could have killed Joyce, even though it was said that they were in another city, it's possible to just go to Saint Fontaine without anyone knowing, right? But then again, the reason why I crossed them out is of because of Fuwa. In Jackal and Raven's death, Fuwa had been with them the entire time. So there is no way that they could have just teleported out of. They could have teleported to the crime scene and do this to it. No, that's impossible. So they're crossed out. So the only one left, and my main prime suspect. My main prime suspect is Sora. It actually fits with Raven's death wound because aside from this three, like I said, Grey Serpent's wound on the neck is actually just put there to make it look like he and Raven had made a clash. But in any cases, uh, the reason why Raven had had her wound on the neck is simply because there was no need for Sora to be stealthy, to be you know, to attack Raven in hidden way. Because there's no way Raven would be on her guard against Sora. If she ever finds Sora, the first thing that Raven would do is approach her openly. She wouldn't have expected an attack on her. Yeah, unlike Joyce, Jackal, and Grey Serpent, they would be on guard of Sora if they ever find her doing something suspicious. They would never approach her openly like Raven does. So yeah, I guess that's my that's my deductions, and that's how my deduction ended up with. So Sora is the the main suspect that I have. Okay, so the only thing I need to do now is to see whether my deductions are right. In any cases, if the this part here, I think this is still this is like it's a distraction to make it look like it was two person or something like that. Or maybe I'm wrong. No, I think it is. So anyways, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Whatever. Let's go and play. So here we go. Do you think you're now ready to tell me, Dr. Einstein? What is this Omega 2 that Mr. Joyce has been tracing these years? I leaned forward, while the blue-haired lady on the other side of the table is impassively staring at me in the eye. Moments later, she let out a deep sigh, as if she just decided to give up something important. A deep, huh. You won, Doctor. What I'm about to tell you is the biggest secret of Lab 42 of Schicksal Imperial Institute. I trust you, but please don't put me in certain circumstances that require me to take drastic measures. I'm confident about my ability to keep secrets. You don't have to worry about that. I don't think Miss Adler is with us on this one. We're probably Conan Doyle's probably confronting uh Miss Einstein alone. To be honest, I'm surprised and flattered that you agreed to reveal the secret to me without much hesitation. So many people have died, I had no other choice. And I'd like to know what secrets are hidden behind this incident too. In that case, I'm all ears. Do you know that Walt used to be an assistant at Lab 42? Of course, everyone knows. But what do you know about his past before he joined Lab 42? Now that you mention it, I just realized that there is no intel about Walt Joyce's past. It's because of the Institute's strict intel control measures. Welt used to be the Institute's top secret sample before he was transferred to Lab 42. Sample? Yes, sample for an experiment, codename Omega 1. Omega 1. You don't need to know his real identity. I can't reveal it anyway, but I can tell you the Omega 2 Welt had been tracing were the only two copies of Omega 1 that the Institute had successfully made back when Wells served as the sample. The only two copies? Wait a sec, does that mean Joffrey? You're indeed incisive, Doctor. Yes, the boy whom you just met is one of the two copies. Okay, so Joffrey, what is that? Is that a is can I assume that that's a clone? So Joffrey is a clone then? Who'd have thought this is what direct descendant really means? But unfortunately, those two boys did not get Welt's powers. Okay, so my deductions are probably all wrong, and the other person could possibly be the other Joffrey clone. Possibly the other clone. Ah. Oh well, all of my deductions just flew out the window. But unfortunately, those two boys did not get Welt's powers. Don't mind that. In short, as they failed to meet expectations, the Institute decided to dispose of Omega 2. Upon learning of this, Welt intervened in the influence of Lab 42 and managed to protect one of them at last. But the other one went missing ever since. I see, so Mr. Joyce acquired the intel that this missing Omega 2 was last seen in Saint Fontaine. Unfortunately, when he acquired the intel, the cataclysm already struck. So he led Lab 42 to Saint Fontaine, not just to fight against the disaster, but also to investigate the whereabouts of Omega 2. Correct. Our informant in the Institute told us the cause of the cataclysm had something to do with a certain experiment. But we couldn't find any records of the participants and details of the experiment. So that's why the Institute hired outsiders to conduct the experiment. What did you say? Knock, knock. There was a timely knock on the door. It's open. I ended this conversation before Dr. Einstein could ask any more questions. Oh, so Conan Doyle actually found out something interesting. Oops, am I interrupting you too? What's wrong, Irene? I just came to inform you that Sora just woke up. A truth wrapped within lies and more lies, a heart consumed by... Oh, so Silly is actually making her official entrance. My deductions just eventually flew out the window. When I saw Sora, Jove, isn't this supposed to be Joffrey? Why is it Joffrey? Was sitting by her bed. To my surprise, it was his stepsister Bronya who was with him rather than Dr. Tesla. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Bronya. Where's Dr. Tesla? She's still studying data about the Phantom, but Joey wants to check in on Sora. I think it's possible that the Phantom is actually Silly. It's possible. Maybe. I don't know anymore. Bronya, there's something I'd like to talk about with the doctor. Can you take Joffrey somewhere else for a minute? Oh yeah, it is Joffrey. 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 Sure, come on, Joey. I actually butchered Joey's name of Joffrey. Joffrey took Bronya's hand and they went out together. Seeing this made me begin to doubt my assumption. Yeah, Conan Doyle probably also put Bronya on, it's probably Bronya or Joffrey on the suspicion list. From what I saw, there were as close as siblings with blood ties. Can't imagine she came to fight for the inheritance. Joachim told me Bronya cared deeply about a little girl in the orphanage, but she didn't make it in the disaster. Joey's true identity cannot be known, and he's been really weak that walking was impossible for him until recently. Yeah, so me putting Joey in the possible suspect is very weak. I also mentioned that. It's the first time Bronya has seen him in 5 years. Maybe she was reminded of some fond memories. Hmm. Sora, how do you feel? Sir, I'm much better now. Sora's eyes were dull, her voice weak, and her face washed by tears. Apparently, she had learned Raven's death. Okay, so Sora is has apparently just been crossed off the list as well. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions? She nodded softly, and I pulled a chair close to her bed to sit down. Could you tell me what happened last night, from the blackout until now? All right, but I can't remember some of it, and I had this weird dream. It's okay, just tell me what you still remember. Last night, after the blackout, I felt someone grab me from behind. I screamed and tried to break free, but then something hit me in the head and I passed out. And then, I don't know how long had passed, but I was somewhere else when I woke up. A small alley, I think. My hands and feet were all tied up. I tried to scream for help, but my mouth was stuffed with rag. I struggled to get up and look around, and then I saw him. He was in a black cloak and his face was behind a mask. He just stood there in the rain and he didn't say anything. Although it was quite of weird how she could identify the person in the black cloak as a he, considering the fact that the person was wearing a mask. Is it the build? I wanted to ask him who he was, why he took me, but my head was swimming and I couldn't see clearly, and Sora was frowning and wrestling with her memory. I waited quietly for her to continue. And then he took out a knife and began to wipe it. One swipe, two, three. My mind wanted to escape, but my head was so dizzy and all I could think of was sleep. Dizzy? Grey Serpent drugged her? No, I ran a brief test on her last night and no residual of anesthetic chemicals was found. After a while, this man finished wiping the knife and turned to me. I was scared to death, but I couldn't even scream loud. He walked up to me and lifted his knife. I held my breath for what came next. And just then, Sensei, she showed up. Oh, so she made it just in time? Sora nodded and then looked away, keeping her tearful face from us. I don't know. The coincidence that Sora is telling us of the story it's it's very sus. Right now I am my suspicion of Sora is coming back. Sensei, she saved me. She fought the masked man hard. I never saw her so angry. Then what? What did you see after? The masked man was losing and Sensei knocked him down. Sora's recall had matched my assumption so far, but it was her next words that really mattered. Who killed your sensei and wrote the word in blood? I didn't see. I fell asleep. Asleep? After Sensei beat down the bad guy, she walked to me. Once I knew we were safe, I couldn't hold back the sleepiness any longer. My eyelids became heavier and heavier. While it was also raining, if I remember correctly, it was raining that time. Right? Was it raining? No, it wasn't. I don't think it was raining anymore because otherwise the blood wouldn't have been washed off. When did you wake up? Just right now, in this room, Bronya was taking care of me. She told me, Sensei, I can't remember anything before. But we just saw you standing there when we reached you, and you were even the one who uh who gave us the hint where Raven was. Nothing at all. No, but I had a weird dream when I was asleep. Dream? What kind of dream? In the dream, I became someone else, a girl dressed in blue. This is uncanny. Right when we found Jackal's body, I seem to have seen a girl in blue too. The girl seemed very sad, and I started to feel sad too. The girl, did she do anything to you? No, in the dream I was her. I saw a man holding my hand in the pouring rain, but I couldn't see his face clearly. He kept saying something, but I couldn't understand. It's just a bad dream, right, doctor? The moment I wanted to comfort her, I was struck by a violent dizziness. This was not the first time. We're probably really it's probably that we're actually experiencing the phenomenon. It's probably that. Anything could happen in this kind of setting. When I opened my eyes again, Sora, Irene, and Dr. Einstein were all gone. All I could see was an azure shadow. Find me. Stop it. The girl in blue whispered so, and then I became her. This is all of them. Wow, even so, Joachim was actually a part of it. Jackal, what did you do to Joffrey? Easy now, Joachim. Joffrey's modification and debugging are almost done. Testing is in order now. So, okay, so Joachim was also a part of it, even though Dr. Einstein said that he wasn't aware of it. So he really was part of it. But he's just a kid. Keep your researchers cool. He is just a test subject, a means to achieve the end. Jackal and Joachim? Jackal looks pretty much the same, but Joachim seems a lot younger. Joachim seems sus now. They seem to be fighting over Joffrey. Joffrey? Why would his name come up here? You leaving? Of course, I've done my part and got paid. No reason for me to linger. Stay and witness history. History? What does that have to do with me? He's still the Raven I know. Whoa. Wow, wow. Joey, are you alright? They say I'm sick and it's bad. Is it true, Mr. Joachim? You're not sick. Trust me. Everything will be fine. Sick? What happened to him? Here's Branya. Shh. I think Joey's not getting treatment. We can't trust anyone from the church, not even Mr. Joachim. Don't worry, I'll keep you both safe. Oh no. This is so creepy. I was there once again, only this time it became much more realistic. I opened my palms and found two small, soft hands which clearly belonged to the unnamed girl. I had no doubt that I just saw was something about the test that took place 5 years ago. But why? Why would this strange memory come to me? Whose memory is this? If it's the girl who is sharing it with me, then what purpose is it for? With a million questions, I slowly walked to the azure shadow in the darkness. The rose is red, the violet is blue. Mary is sweet, and so are you. The rose is red, and Mary is blue. We were deceived, and so are you. She never turned around to face me, only singing this familiar nursery rhyme again and again in a weeping voice. I picked up my pace trying to catch up, but the harder I tried, the further she got away, and all of a sudden, I was cast out from this dream world. Okay, so all we did was just simply run around. Why did she even have to carry a side with her? Okay. What is it? Doctor's right. The incision on the body could only have been made by someone much shorter. Joffrey? Or Sora? We can't let her know this. It's too cruel for a child. We are in an empty utility room in the underground lab of the mansion, which is now a bit crowded due to the three corpses lying side by side. Have you checked Mr. Joyce's body in the treatment room next door? Yes, I have. It's indeed him, and I've checked all vital signs. He's dead for real. Hmm. I'm curious, did you already suspect Sora before you visited her today? So I guess I was right. It is Sora. Just a simple guess based on the position of the scarlet word on the wall. It was almost level with Raven's head, who died sitting on the ground leaning against the wall. And adult of normal height would need to bend over or squat down to write the word, which would not be a comfortable posture for writing, but the word was obviously written smoothly, which means the writer of the word was likely to be the same height as a child, and there happened to be a child on the scene. So I guess my deduction had been right. Well, that's good to know. So all that uh, brain brain thinking of mine had not been had not been in vain. It's common sense, not a law, so it cannot be used as evidence in legal procedure. You're witty as ever, Doctor. Now we just need evidence that Sora did it. Though the process of your reasoning foul of facts and common sense, the deduction you've reached sounds improbable. I agree with Miss Adler. Your deduction this time is just implausible. Do you really think the perpetrator of the serial killings is a phantom? I'm not sure, Hoa. Those who doubt always try to fit their own guesses into facts, but I deduce from the facts and see if my deductions fit. This is what I have deduced from the facts known to us. As I talk, I bent over and sniffed Grey Serpent's body. So I was right after all. I think we can skip the reasoning and directly identify the murderer, but I need you to help me with something first. The air is filled with a delicate floral scent. Yes, this is the source of the scent. I'm standing in the yard in front of the mansion, sniffing at the fragrance of rosemary. A man is carefully pruning next to me. I didn't know you were interested in flowers too, Doctor. Oh, I have learned some basic botany for professional reasons. Rosemary stems are lignified quickly. Too much pruning may harm the growth of new foliage, so it's best not to trim off more than half of a stem's over length at one time. And what you're doing is textbook pruning, Mr. Joachim. These plants must have been well tended in the past 5 years. I see you are very proud of your endless erudition. I heard the complacency in your tone. Joachim responded without even looking up. I raised an eyebrow. You seem to have a distaste for me, Mr. Joachim. I just hope you can do your job properly, Doctor. I don't want to see Bronya worried and scared. It's your duty to find the murderer and put an end to these horrors. Are you sure you can afford wasting time here? In my defense, I am doing my job here right now. What? I abruptly approached Joachim, clenched his wrist, and whispered to him, You know who the murderer is from the very beginning, don't you? I don't know what you're talking about, but now I know Dr. Einstein shouldn't have trusted you with this case. His breathing was steady and his pulse did not quicken, so I decided to drop another bomb. She is here, isn't she? The second bomb has obviously caused damage. Joachim's body quivered. But I thought it was supposed to be Sora, but she was probably possessed. His hand seems to have been frozen on the rosemary stems. I can tell that he's trying hard to calm himself down. I don't understand anything you said, Doctor, but you're making me uncomfortable. It's alright, all the puzzles will clear up soon. I let go of his wrist and took a look at my watch. It's about time. Come with me, please. Let's settle this matter once and for all. Okay, where was I? When I stepped into the hall, everyone was present except Hua and the bedridden Sora. Doctor, I've gathered everyone here as you requested. Thank you, Dr. Einstein. I scanned around, passing through everyone's face before I cleared my throat. Hey, is it true you found the murderer, expert Snoop? Well, Dr. Tesla, how about you call me something else? Whatever, stop holding it up and tell us who it is. Sure, the conclusion is Grey Serpent killed Mr. Joyce, but he was not responsible for the other three murders. And I presume it is someone among us then, Doctor? Yes, but we'll get to that part later. First, let's look at how Mr. Welt Joyce was murdered. After all, this is the very reason I'm here now. Dr. Einstein, may I? As Dr. Einstein nodded his head, I went over what I was going to say in my head. It all started 5 years ago, if not any earlier. Mr. Joyce had two lineal descendants. One is Joey, and the other one went missing years ago. Let's just call the other one Omega 2. 5 years ago, the catastrophic event hit St. Fountain and Lab 42 came for relief. This was just an appearance. What Mr. Joyce truly wished to find out was a test that caused the disaster in Omega 2. Every sign leads to the fact that the high-ups of the church had a hand in the tests, but no record was left. Naturally, according to Raven, no one from the church was directly involved. The tests were led by Jackal. Grey Serpent was the material supplier. Raven handled the delivery of materials. What a team they make. Wait, what do you mean by materials? I think you know Jackal better than me. It wasn't the first time for her to meddle with human subjects. That's ridiculous! If she took in a lot of human subjects, how could she get away with it? Get away with unwanted attention! I believe you've noticed, Dr. Tesla. Back then, in St. Fountain, there was a place to take in orphans legitimately. Joachim! Is it true? You were managing the church just for this atrocious business? Tesla's anger silenced the whole hall. Everyone held their breath and looked at the same person. Joachim pursed his lips and slowly closed his eyes. Dr. Tesla, it must be a mistake. Mr. Joachim, Why is Bronya now defending Joachim? She should be aware. I know, it is indeed a mistake. I asked Raven about Mr. Joachim's role in the tests. She told me he was kept in the dark all along, right until the city was turned into ruins. Oh, so it was actually Raven who told us. It wasn't Dr. Einstein. I'm very sorry. That was my mistake. It was Raven who actually told us. But can we take her words for it? I believe yes. Raven confessed after she saw Mr. Joyce's notes, which pointed out Mr. Joyce was on to Grey Serpent. The test on human subjects led to St. Fountain's fall. Once revealed, the truth will crucify everyone involved. So, Grey Serpent acted first and killed Welt. This explains Grey Serpent's motive. After Jackal's death and Sora's kidnap, Raven became sure Grey Serpent meant to silence everyone involved. She made the confession knowing she'd probably die in Grey Serpent's hands. I don't think she had any reason to lie. I was there too, and I believe she was telling the truth. No, wait. I'm not sure I'm following. The tests that caused the catastrophe and Grey Serpent's motive. I got this part. But Joachim, you knew what Welt was after all these years. Why did you keep your mouth shut? What the hell is your plan? Dr. Tesla, I believe Mr. Joachim will give us a convincing explanation himself. But before that, let's return to the case itself. The killer of Jackal, Grey Serpent, and Raven is still among us. What? But to follow what you just told us, Grey Serpent killed Welt, Jackal and kidnapped Sora. Raven then killed him to save Sora at the cost of her life. That explains everything, right? It's a fine story, but I believe you left out something important. Rache, the blood writing. Yes, what I'm about to say might sound far-fetched, so I'd like to begin with the two murders after Mr. Joyce. In normal circumstances, Dr. Tesla's explanation makes perfect sense, if not for the blood writings. Rache means revenge in German. If it was Grey Serpent, he apparently didn't kill for revenge. On the other hand, if the writing was merely a distraction, then why didn't we see it near Mr. Joyce's body? Right, there was also that. There was no word of Rache when Joyce died. True. Dr. Tesla and Einstein said when they found Mr. Joyce, Grey Serpent was also there with a knife on his back. But when they got Mr. Joyce to the emergency room and returned, Gray's serpent was gone. I examined Gray's serpent's body firsthand, trying to get an answer. The back wound went to the heart, a fatal blow, and the wound had rotten so much that it's safe to say he died exactly around the time of Mr. Joyce's death. What? Which means a corpse rose from the dead and killed Jackal and Raven before it was finally put to rest. That indeed defies everything logically. To begin with, it's hard to imagine all three directly involved in the test should show up in St. Fountain together. That is hardly a coincidence. The killings were for revenge, and the three victims shared one thing in common: the Forsaken tests 5 years ago. So, of all the people here today, who has the best reason to see these three dead? They all fell silent after my question. It was more than obvious. Doctor, that's very sound reasoning, but I must say the conclusion is based on the unfounded presumption of guilt. Yes, Bronya and I were victims of the horrendous event 5 years ago, but that doesn't mean we're guilty. And I'd like to remind you, both of us were by your side when the two murders took place. Yes, also the reason why I crossed the two of them out, because Fula had been with them the entire time when those murders occurred. You're right, motive doesn't make you murderer, but there are too many things about you that make no sense. You knew exactly what happened 5 years ago, but you never said anything to Mr. Joyce after joining Lab 42. You knew Jackal was responsible for the tragedy, but you still made her Bronya's governess nonetheless. Oh, so like Joachim is actually an accomplice to gathering all the murdered victims. You knew more tragedies would follow if they got their hands on Mr. Joyce's legacy, but you still invited them here. Unless, of course, none of them would walk out of the manor alive in your plan. Utter gibberish. Say whatever you want. Everyone here, including yourself, is our alibi. As long as it stands, everything you said is just wild fantasy. I knew it would eventually come to this. I said, and put the comlink prepared by Dr. Tesla close to my lips. Action speaks louder than words, and that's how I'm going to prove my theory. Hua, how is the preparation going on your side? I'm ready, Doctor. I turned to face the group with a grim look. I'm going to burn every rosemary in the yard. I found surprise in Dr. Tesla and Bronya's faces, but before they could spoke, someone's breakdown came faster. Stop it! You can't do this! Care to explain me why? Dr. Einstein has given her consent. You... Don't worry, Mr. Joachim. Dr. Tesla told me the church was burned down 5 years ago, but the rosemary survived. It might take Hua some time, but fortunately we prepared enough fuel. It's time for us to find out whether rosemary truly stands for eternity or not. Just bloody stop it! The hysterical scream came from a man of maturity and refinement. He soon regained calm in everyone's shocked gaze. I confess, I killed Grey Serpent, Jackal, and Raven. No, it couldn't have been him. What's going on? I'm lost here. So he's so perhaps the very person I removed, Silly, who made cameo appearances, is actually the one. And she's probably just been possessing Sora. Perhaps. I'll leave the details to the murderer himself, and before that, I'm afraid we have to temporarily restrain your freedom, Mr. Joachim. I mean, they did deduce that it had to be the height of a child. Before I finished my words, Hua had come out of hiding and slowly approached Joachim. It's a trap. A bitter smile floated up Joachim's face. To everyone's surprise, someone small stepped forward in front of him. Don't touch it, Bronya, Miss Zajcik. I know how you feel. Shut up! You know nothing about him or us. All of this is my plan, my revenge, and this is only the beginning. Ow! So it really was them. And they sort of make perfect alibis. They made such perfect alibis that I really had to remove them from my list. Panting. Just quit it, Miss Bronya. Your enemies are all gone. You can stop now, Bronya. No, I can't stop. You don't understand. I used to be very grateful to Grey Serpent who brought me, a lowly child soldier, back from the battlefield. In the church, I met Sally and Joey, my beloved little sister and brother. For the first time in my life, I felt there was something worth cherishing in the world. But that woman named Jackal, she had been making modifications to all the orphans in the name of treatment. I knew something wasn't right, so I started my own investigation. I thought I had been doing it secretly, but they were still alerted. Raven and Grey Serpent somehow knew my plan to confront Sensei, so they pushed me down the stairs. When I woke up again, I had already been sent to one of the Institute's hospitals outside St. Fountain. I tried so many times to leave. I wanted to return to St. Fountain to take Silly and Joey away, but at that time, I hadn't recovered from my leg injury, so all my escapes failed. And one day I read in the newspaper that the cataclysm occurred and St. Fountain had become a dead city. Bronya. Over the years, I've done many investigations with all resources I could possibly access. I even used my bequeathment to lure my enemies. Project Pseudo-Hercher. This was the name of the experiment. It was to create powerful pseudo-Herchers by modifying the copies of the first Hercher Wild Joyce. How did you know about all this, Bronya? They did those human experiments on the orphans purely out of their sick craving for powers. In the end, the project failed, St. Fountain was ruined, and my little brother became a nameless monster who killed our sister. What? The Phantom of St. Fountain is Omega 2? They all deserve to die. So I used Grey Serpent to kill Jackal, so that I didn't have to get her evil blood on my hands. Grey Serpent was the next. His first death was an accident, but I didn't want to let him off easy. I was right. Raven once mentioned she was also an orphan taken in by Grey Serpent. It was him who trained her to be a mercenary. So I controlled Grey Serpent to take Sora to have him killed again by his own pupil. As for Raven, she was ridiculously naive as a merciless mercenary. After everything she had done, she started to adopt orphans all of a sudden. I couldn't stop laughing when I first heard about that. Trying to go straight and make amends, huh? No way. Bad people only deserve to die alone in the shadows. So you controlled Sora to kill her. Oh, so that's the reason why everything wasn't making sense. So she was controlling people around her. You're indeed incisive, Doctor. The bitterness of being killed by someone she had cared and protected. She must taste it, just like my sister did. I should have thought of this earlier. I thought the merciless avenger who had been hiding in the dark was Joachim, but I didn't know you had been holding such violent hatred. Anyway, this should be the end of your revenge. Your enemies are all gone. So I was right to include Joachim as a possible suspect because of the beginning CG. And now I can just surmise that the girl in the beginning CG is actually Bronya. That I think I can be sure now. The end? No, Doctor. Do you really think my revenge is complete after I killed the 3 pawns? Schicksal, the Institute. I know this behemoth is behind all this. When first I realized Schicksal was behind the project, I swore I'd one day erase its entire existence from the world. I opened my mouth but failed to say anything. My usual calmness had been overrun by Bronya's deep resentment. Her obsession with revenge is too intense to be eased by a sense of justice. So I can't stop now. Bronya gave a cruel smile. She reached out her hand and gently stroked Joachim's cheek. You'll protect me, right, Joffrey? Wah? Yes, Branya, my dear big sister. Oh, so the Omega 1 and the Omega 2. Wait, did I get that right? The Omega 1 is probably Joey, and the Omega 2 is Joachim? Joachim has a calm look on his face, but I somehow see a trace of craziness on it. The next moment, deafening roar, a fierce roar came from nowhere. What the? A hideous monster emerged out of thin air behind Bronya and Joachim. And the next second, the monster took Bronya and Joachim and vanished. We all know the monster's name, but only Dr. Tesla came back to senses from the shock and said it out loud. It was a phantom of St. Fountain! So Bunny had been given the role of the Phantom of St. Fountain. I see. Okay. Joffrey? Joachim is Omega 2? I figured it out instantly. The Joffrey that Bronya just mentioned is not a timid little boy who follows around Dr. Einstein, but Omega 2. If Joachim is Omega 2, then what is that phantom? Doctor! Hua woke me up from my contemplation. What should we do now, Doctor? We have no devices or techniques to track down that phantom. Don't worry about it, Dr. Einstein. It's Bronya and Joachim that we should track, not the phantom. Before we assembled here, I borrowed a tracking device from Dr. Tesla and managed to stick it on Joachim's coat. Ah, was it when you were in the yard? You knew back then that the phantom would come? Of course not. I'm not a psychic. I was just taking precautions to prevent them from running away. The real problem is, we don't have any weapons or measures that could hurt the phantom. Even if we could track down Bronya and Joachim with the phantom around, we wouldn't be able to bring them back. Oh, you don't need to worry about that. I've been analyzing the data we collected from the phantom after our encounter with it. The analysis went well, and I made this device based on the results. It can interfere with quantum states. I think it will effectively hurt the phantom if we activate it in battle. Then let's set off. A truth wrapped within lies and more lies, a heart can... The only reason why I crossed out Joachim and Bronya because of their solid alibi of being with Fuwa the entire time. So it's actually been them, but they've been using a phenomenon to actually kill their victims. St. Fountain Railway Station, the only link the city has with the outside world. With a twist amidst the void, two people and a monster emerge. Thank you, Mr. Joachim. Sorry, this is all my fault. No, Joffrey. Conan Doyle is every bit as good as his name, and we were caught off guard by his cheap shot. I wonder how he came to know about the Rosemary's secret. Maybe not on his own, but with some help from Silly. Enough! How many times must I repeat she is dead, and whatever is in the flowers is not her? But if she was, she'd come to me long ago. What should we do now? Leave St. Fountain and lay low before the time is right for our next move. They've all paid with their blood. The only thing left for us to do is leave. I believe we still have unsettled business here, Miss Psychic. Who is there? Made it. Never thought Dr. Tesla's wild driving would actually do some good one day. Miss Psychic, come with us, please. No way you could locate the phantom. Why? She suddenly thought of something and began to search herself. Failing to find what she looked for, she tugged Joachim over and finally found a red dot on the inside of his sleeve. Another cheap shot. Whatever works. Prepare to transfer. However, this time the phantom could not just vanish into thin air with a two like the last time. How? It let out a scream of puzzlement and confusion. After all this time, you still think we're unable to develop any countermeasures? Checkmate, Miss Zaichik. weak roar. Without the protection of the quantum state, the phantom finally fell down under our overwhelming attacks. Its physical composition is very unstable. It might still come back to life if we don't annihilate it now. But I know what you're worried about, Hua, but this phantom is not Omega 2. It's nothing but a Honkai beast. If Miss Fuwa doesn't have the heart to end its life, leave the dirty work to me then. Irene brushed past us and raised her deadly sight. The phantom under the sight is like a wounded beast in a trap awaiting its doom. Sensei! A scream was heard along with the sound of metal clashing together. Bronya and her shield was knocked over by Irene's giant sight. Sensei? What? Did she transfer Joachim's consciousness into the phantom? I suddenly thought of a detail of the intel Hua told me. It was when they first met the phantom. When Joachim was shielding Bronya with himself, the phantom suddenly stopped its attack and disappeared. It turns out when Bronya cried out Sensei, she was actually calling this hideous monster rather than Joachim. Oh! Bronya in here is so good in manipulating the minds of people. I cannot believe this. Stop, Irene! I shouted at the last second. To my surprise, Irene unhurriedly held her side, as if it was what she had expected. Hey, expert Snoop, didn't you hear what I just said? Doctor, what is going on? This is unbelievable. I thought the serial murder and Grease Serpent's undead corpse were already uncanny, but there's actually something even more unexpected. I believe this phantom is the real Joachim, the sensei and father of the orphans before the cataclysm. Oh, so Joachim's consciousness really did transfer to the phantom. This event hides more mind-boggling than anything else. I cannot believe this. It's so confusing. You saw it through after all. Bronya slowly hobbled over to us, leaning on Joachim. You're right, this phantom is Joachim, who was our sensei 5 years ago. What? I have a question, Omega 2. No, Mr. Joffrey. I remember Miss Bronya once mentioned that the failed experiment turned you into a mindless monster 5 years ago. Yes, though I don't remember anything about that experience. I saw the horrible memories stored in this body. Sally, my big sister, was killed by me. Then how did you get into this body? Come to think of it, seems more like a soul swap, perhaps? I don't know. I really don't know. This body gave me all of Sensei's memories, experiences, and knowledge, except for the memory of the soul swap. All I could remember about it was a promise that Sensei made to Selly before she died. Oh, so the girl in the beginning CG really was Selly. A promise? He promised to let me die as a human, even if it means he may have to exchange his soul with the devil. I shouldn't say this as a scientist, but this paranormal phenomenon seems to only make sense when devils are involved. Doctor, we've answered your question, so please answer our question in exchange, as long as I have the answer. I'd like to know, how did you find out about the secret of Rosemary? Find out? You overestimate me, Miss Bronya. If your sister hadn't left me those hints, I'd never have thought floral scents could be used as a medium of possession. Hold on, what are you two talking about? In the mansion, I played some tricks to make the murderer confess, which sparked off a series of unexpected events. But I haven't explained to you about the kind of magic they've used to control Grey Serpent's dead body and make the murders happen. Oh, so it was the Rosemary. Does Rosemary actually exist? I think it does really exist. But I don't think it would have that kind of effect, would it? First devils, now magic. Am I still in the real world? Oh, I can understand you very much, Einstein. It's also confusing for me. They might be the same thing, I think. What does that mean? I once said that there was something paradoxical about the serial murder, the word Rache written with blood. It's true that in many cases, the murderers intentionally left messages at the crime scenes to display their will. But in this case, the word actually made the Grey Serpent murdered all the insiders of the experiment to cover for himself, story less credible. So it occurred to me, maybe the one who wrote the word was trying to reveal the real motive of the murderer. Oh, so it was Sally? Sally was the one who was leaving the Rache clue? And what happened next bore out of my assumption. And oh, so Sally was using Sora's body to write the Rache word. So Sally was possessing Sora. Oh, so that makes sense once this was revealed. When I was visiting Sora, I fell into a dream in which I became a strange little girl. Through her eyes, I saw what happened in a certain lab before the cataclysm happened. And in the end of the dream, I heard the girl humming a certain poem. The rose is red, the violet is blue. Mary is sweet, and so are you. The Mary in the rhyme before was double R, and now it's a single R. I was wondering about that too back there. The rose is red and Mary is blue. We were deceived, and so are you. Ah, yes, it's the same poem left from Mr. Joyce's desk at his death scene. I was finally sure that the girl in my dream was real, and she had been trying to send messages to us. And obviously, Mr. Joyce had also met this girl before. He mentioned about her in his notes that I found in his room. So, so it occurred to me, maybe this girl was trying to tell us more. In fact, when I was in the dream, Irene, Einstein, and Sora all saw that I walked to the window, opened it, and started to mutter to myself. If that behavior was also a hint, then the girl must have some sort of ability to control people's bodies in dream. Crazy as it may sound, it could explain all the illogical aspects of this case. Such as, Dr. Einstein, I remember you told me that you heard Mr. Joyce talking to someone on the phone before he was killed. Yes, I assumed that because I only heard his voice as the conversation proceeded. What if Mr. Joyce was in a state of similar to the one I was in? He could be talking to the air just like I did. It is possible. I remember Miss Bronya mentioned in her confession that Mr. Joyce's death was an accident. So I think it was because of Mr. Joyce's unconsciousness that Grey Serpent easily murdered him. And then, the girl controlled Mr. Joyce's body to give Grey Serpent an unexpected stab in the back, and controlled Grey Serpent's body to leave the scene. Oh, so it's actually silly. Your imagination is impressive. You're a natural novelist, and an ordinary detective wouldn't have been trapped in common sense. But you managed to break free and even devise a method of trickery to verify your wild hypothesis. Well, at that time, I believe making you think I was going to burn down the flowers was the easiest way to reveal the uncanny truth. So it wasn't actually them, but what you just explained doesn't have anything to do with Rosemary. Oh, about that. It was actually also a hint from the girl. I told you she controlled me to open the window. So after I woke up from the dream, I looked out the window and saw nothing but a yard full of rosemary, which reminded me of the first time I fell into a dream about the girl. It was when I was examining Jackal's corpse. I smelled a pleasant floral scent coming from Joachim, who was standing next to me. So what? They've been using the rosemary to control people? What? This is so confusing. When it was just making sense, it suddenly spiraled out of control again. Oh, goodness. Then I suddenly realized that I knew that scent. I had smelled it several times. In Mr. Joyce's room, on Grey Serpent's rotting body, and on Sora, whom I visited after Raven's death. I see. That's how you knew Raven was killed by the possessed Sora. Not just that, the angle of the incision in Raven's throat also suggested the murderer was much shorter than her, and the height of the scarlet wart on the wall also agreed with this conjecture. On top of all this, I found a familiar face in the role of the cataclysm victims that I borrowed from Dr. Einstein. The girl who made me see what happened in the lab 5 years ago must be someone from the orphanage, and I found her. Her name was Celie Volere, who was Bronya Zajcik's little sister and best friend in the orphanage. Thank you for elaborating, Doctor, but I don't think the girl hiding in Rosemary's scent is my sister Celie. If it really was her, then why did she reveal my plan to you while assisting me with my revenge? I see you still haven't understood. It's certainly because she loves her sister and little brother deeply. So she's been helping them while still hoping someone would find out and rescue them from the gory path of revenge. Maybe you're right, Doctor. Bronya opened her hand. There's a glowing. Was that mauve bloom in her palm? It's rosemary, the flower of memories. Why? Why would you rather appear in other people's dreams than coming to me? If Doctor is right, if that's how you really feel. Bronya hesitated no more. She raised the rosemary and gently kissed the delicate petals. Then show me. A strong fragrance diffused like a night breeze as the rosemary in Bronya's hand dissolved into red and black hues. For a moment, I seemed to see a red figure soundlessly emerging behind Bronya. She embraced Bronya's slender neck, then their figures overlapped. Oh, we have. It's the. It's the other silly. Distractor Pua. It's all over. She was exhausted. She could feel the raging fury that she used to control her faded gradually and vanished at last. The rosemary in her hand, which was supposed to bloom eternally, had withered and become hideous, sear remains. So this is how you refuted me, by helping me vent my anger until we are both hurt and exhausted. So this is what awaits at the end of the path of revenge, isn't it? The rain kept pouring down. Bronya weakly looked up, her eyes widened in surprise. She saw a clear, vivid figure. It's her friend, her sister, and her family. For so many years, she has been treating this figure as just a figment, a phantom, and a handy tool for her revenge. Because the phantom never smiled or spoke to her or kept her warm when the cold came like Silly used to. But she just realized Silly had always been with her. She was just blinded by the intense hatred in her mind. She knows it's Silly, because only Silly would shed sorrowful tears for her. Silly? Silly, Bronya, Joey? I've known this all along because I've been looking after the rosemary and our memories. Though Sally cannot talk to us, she has always been with us. Ah, I'm sorry, Bronya, but rather than taking revenge, I want the three of us together. Joey, Sally. Tears ran down her cheeks for the first time since she indulged herself in the overwhelming desire for vengeance. She felt her real emotions, then she saw an unreal image. In bright white light, a gentle, cultivated man and a girl in blue are leaving hand in hand. Ah, because they killed the phantom, so the real Joachim uh is already dead too. The man looked back and waved at her with comforting smile as if he just perceived her gaze. Take care, dear Branya. They said their farewell and faded away in the wild light. It's supposed to be white light. Come on. When she came back to her senses, she found the seer flower remains in her hand gone with the wind. And that monstrous phantom was also gone. Ah. Ah! she she finally started to wail miserably. Case closed, Doctor. Yeah, the only thing left to do is deal with the two culprits, which is not the detective's job. Dr. Einstein, I think we should let Mr. Joyce decide. Ha, I didn't expect another twist in the end. How fascinating. You're making no sense, Doctor. Agreed, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's okay, Ein, Tesla. No need to cover for me now that I'm already exposed. It's Joey! You know, the little kid. So he actually is the the clone. So that's another thing. So Joey is the clone of Wild Joyce. The memory probably transferred over to a small figure emerged from the corner of the street. Obviously, he saw everything that just happened. Joey? It's Geoffrey Joyce. He now looks too solemn as a child, but I can see he's trying to give a friendly smile. I thought I had been hiding well. Could you tell me when I gave myself away, Doctor? You have indeed hidden well, Mr. Joyce, but there have been a few subtle hints. The first one was the paradoxical aura you exuded when you gave testimony at Jackal's death scene. You weren't like a timid boy at all. I knew it. I'm a fan of your detective stories and have always wanted to say lines like that, so I got carried away. But what really makes me realize that you're still alive is something more solid than an intuitive feeling. What is it? The change in Dr. Einstein's attitude. The investigation once came to a dead end before Raven told us about the experiment, which provided a turnaround. And the reason why she told us was because we found the notes about the experiment and Grey Serpent in your room. What's wrong with that? I checked your bookshelf on my first search in your room. The notes weren't there at that time. And under that circumstance, the way Dr. Einstein infuriated Raven just felt too intentional. Well, I knew I wasn't good at acting. I remember clearly that when we first arrived, Dr. Einstein was slow to talk about the Phantom and the Cataclysm. Yet, she provided me those key clues that could push the investigation forward via such a poor act. Such a dramatic change in her attitude could only be a result of someone's instruction. There are a lot of things that's been been revealing in here. And I can't think of anyone else in this manner that could order Dr. Einstein except for the deceased Mr. Joyce. I see, that's really impressive. Then, what's with your situation? I wouldn't believe it if you told me you turned into a little boy for fun. That's certainly not the case, but I really don't know why it happened. Oh. But wait, there was also his corpse, you know? So what's going on? You've already deduced the details of the murder. In fact, I don't remember anything about it. When I woke up again, I was already in this body. I have to ask, now that you're occupying this body, where is the original soul of this Omega 2? It doesn't exist. I'm so sorry, Doctor. I had Ein lie to you. There were indeed two of my copies, but there is only one Omega 2, which is the Joffrey in Joachim's body. Then this body never woke up since it was made. Though its vital signs have been normal, the lack of a soul still makes it defective. Oh, so he possessed the body. Anyway, I'm glad to see you're still alive, Mr. Joyce. I'm glad to meet you too, Dr. Conan Doyle. Well, then cast a glance at Bronya and Joffrey and showed a trace of sadness. Mr. Joyce, you are my client. Now that the perpetrators have been identified, the rest is up to you to decide. I'd like to hear your suggestions, Doctor. I pondered for a moment and said in a measured tone, there were a few cases that made me realize sometimes catching the culprits brings more pain than the very crimes. And now I've learned to be more prudent. If I had to choose, I'd rather deceive the rules than my conscience. I think so too. Sometimes one tragedy might lead to another, and this chain reaction may go on forever, which will eventually push everything and everyone into a hopeless abyss. The two of them already bear too much pain. I'm glad to see we are in agreement on this matter. My dear Hua, it's time for a return trip if the train station hasn't been blown up. Hua nodded. Her reticence on occasions like this has been quite comforting to me. Welt also expresses gratitude to Irene. I failed to figure out the relationship between them after all. Yeah, and Irene is still is still very sus. Fragment 1. It was indeed a tragic scene. The merciless rain poured down, but the remaining fires were still relentlessly burning all over the building that was once called. Oh, this is just like the beginning CG though. Life had escaped from the eyes of the petite girl, but the man believed she was there. Can it really save them? The man asked abruptly in a hoarse, calm voice. In a moment, a melodious female voice answered him. Who knows? It brings different results to different wishes. But you have no other choice, don't you? She soundlessly appeared behind him like a light dream. Her tone was still bewitching, but with less mockery. I think that is Irene Adler. She was probably the one who switched Joachim and Joffrey, who was in the Phantom. She was probably the one who swapped their bodies. You're right, I have no other choice. He walked to the little girl and gently picked her up like clearing a plume of smoke. She already vanished when he stood up, but he walked to the scorched flower bed anyway, carrying the little girl. The fire had burned down every inch of the church, let alone that clump of delicate rosemary. He looked at the flower bed that once full of green and mauve hues, and ashes and charred twigs were the only things left, with embers greedily gnawing at them. But he didn't hesitate. He gently put the little girl in the remains of the flowers. I will keep my promise, silly. Like a dreamy flashback, the clump of charred rosemary was instantly restored to its original beauty and delicacy. So, Irene Adler is actually the devil in this story. The green stems propped up the girl's body, and the mauve petals softly stroked her skin. The embers ebbed away upon contact of the petals like a canoe being pushed back by the tide. It's their memory an eternal sanctuary. Nothing could hurt her anymore. The man thought so with relief. How a terrible growl echoed through the rain. A giant twisted figure can be made out in the distance. He began to run towards it resolutely. Wait for me, Joffrey. Die a human. Live on a human. So that's what happened. The boy's memory was hazy and fragmented. He only remembered he had a dream after he woke up. A horrible dream in which he was no longer a boy but a big ugly monster. His mouth had a taste of blood and his claws ripped open what felt like human flesh. His eyes could only see red. He felt relief waking up from the nightmare. For one instant he thought he'd be trapped in the monster forever. But still his body felt different. He lifted his hands and checked. Even though covered in mud and dirt, these big hands obviously belonged to a grown man. What happened to me? He now found his voice wrong too. It was a deep and familiar voice that he seemed to have heard every day. He panicked and got up to his feet amidst the fire and wreckages. What on earth happened to him? He stood still in this living hell and labored to search his memory. At last he thought of something important and began to sprint towards what was left of the church. All this was quietly taken in by the eyes of the sorceress. She was gently nipping a delicate flower with soft blue glow. The glow kept flickering in the rain as if singing the Floriograph of the rosemary. So that's it, and here's the finale. There certainly has to be a lot of intertwined crosses in here because it doesn't make sense. The finale. Well, Joyce announced that the members of Lab 42 had seceded from Schicksal and allied with the North America branch of Schicksal to form a new anti-Honkai organization named Anti-Entropy. I didn't expect Joyce would have made such a huge move after that incident, but you seem to be indifferent to this shocking news. I'm used to going where the wind blows. I prefer dealing with little cases rather than huge organizations and systems. Anyway, a rival organization to Schicksal. Sounds like the right place for Bronya and Joffrey. I heard you just returned from a long journey. Did Hua tell you this? Yes, I went to the East region to take care of Raven's instrument to me. Those orphans she adopted have been taken in by anti-entropy. I believe Mr. Joyce will take good care of them. Anyway, though this case was solved, I still don't have a clue how the possession via floral scent and soul exchanges happened. Here is the culprit, right here. She's sitting on your desk. I didn't know you'd be so obsessed with the paranormal. Before the phantom vanished, I thought I saw a mirage for a moment. I saw Joachim and Celie leaving in white light. He looked back and waved his hand as if he was thanking someone. Sounds more like he was just waving goodbye. No, my intuition told me he was expressing gratitude to someone. And for a moment, you seemed to be giving them a wave, though you weren't facing them. Oh, I did? Are you sure? Of course. Still playing the innocent, huh? This serial murder happened in St. Mountain might be the most uncanny case that I could ever experience in my life. And the uncanny part is... the gray serpent we saw wasn't really gray serpent. The phantom wasn't a phantom. Joachim wasn't Joachim. And even Joffrey wasn't really himself. Then is it possible that Irene Adler wasn't really Irene Adler and Conan Doyle wasn't the real Conan Doyle? If I remember correctly, yeah, I mean, Irene Adler was supposed to be a character in Sherlock Holmes too. Could it possibly be that Rita here just used it as a pseudonym? Although her battlesuit name is Rosemary. Who are you? Who I am is not important. The real question is, who are you? Me? I'm... You have the answers, but something seems to be clenching your throat and preventing you from voicing them out. The people and incidents in your mind are real memories, but it felt as if you're browsing through an old album, inside an isolated chamber, and the next moment. So, Conan Doyle in here is actually the Captain of Hyperion. It always ends to that. The self-insert protagonist always ends up to be the Captain of Hyperion. You fell into endless darkness. Is he awake? No, he probably needs more time. I've already helped him find himself. It's only a matter of time for him to wake up, but... too many times of consciousness mapping have added too many foreign perceptions and cognitions into his mind. If this continues, sooner or later... I know that, and he knows that too, but that's his choice. As for you, I find it suspicious that you actually managed to infiltrate Hyperion and seem to know everything about this guy. So it really is the Captain of Hyperion, huh? You're not like me or anyone else on this ship. I can feel it. To be more precise, you are more like him. Who are you? If I recall correctly, Miss Kongming, we made a deal a long time ago. Oh, so Kongming is also involved. If if you guys don't know, Kongming is actually Teresa. Well, she's a Teresa look-alike. Probably another bubble world. I take him back and you let me have my own little secret. Furtive woman. I've told you that my name is Rita Rossways. So it really is Rita. She's just using Irene Adler as a pseudonym. Though I may not be the same Rita you used to know, I wouldn't refuse if you ever feel like snuggling up to me. Yeah, these are the Teresa and the Rita of different bubble worlds. Definitely for sure. You I'll turn a blind eye to you for now as a thank you for saving him. Sounds fair, but if I ever find out about whatever you might be scheming to do on Hyperion, you can punish me however you like. I will. This bedroom is yours now. If he wakes up, tell him to meet me on the bridge when he feels better. I have a lot to say to him. Oh, I feel sorry for him. What was that? Did you hear that? She seemed to be bent out of shape. Please let me escape from reality for a while. Right. You don't seem to be surprised seeing me here. I know you and me are the same. I can feel that thing inside you. Consciousness mapping is a complicated ability. You may want to stop using it. Oh, so the Captain of Hyperion is also capable of doing something. He has an ability of some sort too. I thought that he was always just a silly captain who's doing instructions, you know. It synchronizes your consciousness and memories with the objects, which generates an unbearably massive info load. And the increasing amount of cognition residues left in your mind will impair your self awareness. Is that so? I did think I was a novelist this time. If you didn't help me remember myself, I wouldn't be here. So, Rita, does that mean you. Hmm? Oh, nothing. I just had a nostalgic dream and my mind was still hazy. I feel better now. I'm gonna go meet her on the bridge. This tiny lantern is like your guide to the afterlife. She somehow, I feel like she's more like the Grim Reaper in the story. Ah, what a reunion. So he did not recognize me at all. What? There's still more secret? Classic Captain. He is always perspicacious and perceptive about anything except for his own business. But if I put on this dress for him, do you think he would recognize me, Loki? Who's Loki? Whoa. Who is that? What battle suit is that? I don't think I recognize the battle suit. Wait. Okay, so I can claim some stuffs here. I can finally claim this one. And I can claim some extras. I'll choose Golden Diva. Let's do that. And one last here. This too. And that's it. I don't think I should... Wait. Oh, and looky here. I could actually evolve her now. Just what I needed. But wait a minute. This is Rosemary? No?
サイズがぴったりですが、どうして館長様は私のサイズを知っているのですか?
What she was wearing at the ending, it's not here yet. Or is it...
ご指示をお待ちしております。
Is it on the others?
とても貴重なプレゼント。
No, it was red, you know.
ご用命でしょうか? とても貴重なプレゼントをいただいたようですね。
Wait, where is the basic Rita?
ご指示をお待ちしております。とても貴重なプレゼントをいただいたようですね。とても実用的なお洋服ですね。
No.
とても貴重な
Her
プレ
hair
ゼン
is
トをいただい
short.
たようですね。
Oh.
ご用命でしょうか?
This is the only one who has a long hair too.
新しいお洋服の方がサイズが合うようですね。
So no, I guess it's not her either. This is just a rerun of the event, if I remember correctly. I didn't play this the first time, but I wonder
とりあえ
if...
ずしばらくご一緒します。
So I don't know the differences. This is Fallen Rosemary. Maybe I should get her these. It's just that, well, this battlesuit of Rita is kind of very tiring to the hands because I need to keep on jumping around with her. But anyway, she's on BP too. So yeah. Well, yep. I guess that's it. So it's finally finished and I am not going to do this anymore. It's there's somewhere neat for me, right? I mean, it's just these things. I don't think I'll be able to make it anyway. Anyways, that's it for today's video. I guess logic doesn't... My entire deduction during the beginning of this this video had been flown out of the window because of the paranormal stuff that had happened. So I guess that's it. So I'll see you guys in the next video, which would probably be the coming of Griseo, another flame chaser. Yeah, I'm not sure. I used to want to pull for her when I first saw her. But now when I saw a demo of how she works, I'm not sure anymore. But anyways, we'll see. Yeah, so see you in the next video.